Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into a really critical update that's going to affect pretty much every single business in Israel that has a website. There's a major change coming to the country's privacy law, and trust me, it completely rewrites the rules for how you handle data. So let's get you prepared.
Okay, you're going to want to circle August on your calendar. This isn't just some minor little tweak. Amendment 13 to the Privacy Protection Law is going into effect, and it represents a fundamental shift in how all of us are required to handle user data online.
And that, brings us to the big question, the one that really matters. Are you exposed? Because not being compliant isn't some hypothetical risk anymore. It now comes with some very real, very serious financial and operational consequences.
To make sense of all this, we're going to walk through it together, step by step. First, we'll look at the stakes, why this really matters. Then, we'll get into the rules and what counts as data. After that, we'll get practical with a 4-step action plan. And finally, we'll cover some extra checks to make sure you're buttoned up.
So let's kick it off with Section 1, the stakes. Why is this all happening right now, and what exactly are these new risks we're talking about?
Well, the main idea behind this whole amendment is pretty straightforward. It's about bringing Israeli law up to speed with global standards, like Europe's famous GDPR. It's all about beefing up protection for our personal data. And, this is the crucial part, giving users like you and me more direct control over how our information gets collected and used.
So you might be asking, who does this actually apply to? And honestly, the answer is just about everyone. I mean, just think about your website for a second. Do you have a simple contact form that asks for a name or an email? Yep, you're affected. Do you use common tools like Google Analytics or the Facebook Pixel for ads? You're affected. If you let people log in with social media, process payments, or collect location data, all of these totally normal, everyday activities now fall right under the scope of this new law.
And here is where that risk becomes really, really tangible. The law creates a whole new reality for lawsuits. A user can now sue you for a privacy breach and claim compensation, up to 50,000 shekels, as you can see there on the left, and get this, without even having to prove they suffered any actual damage. And if it's proven that you acted with intent, that amount can double to 100,000 shekels. Ouch. But it's not just about the money. The Privacy Protection Authority now has this incredibly powerful new tool in its toolbox. They have the power to order a complete stop to your business operations if they find you're breaking the law. This turns compliance from a nice-to-have into a matter of basic business survival.
Okay, now that we're all properly motivated by the risks, let's move on to our second section, the rules. To get compliant, you first have to understand what the law even considers data. Because what you think you're collecting and what the law says you're collecting might be two very different things. So what does the law actually mean when it says personal information? As you can see here, the definition is incredibly broad. It's not just a name or an ID number. It's basically any data that can be linked back to a person, including things you might never think of, like their financial situation, their job training, or even their personal opinions.
And then, inside that already big category, there's this special little subgroup you really need to know about. It's called sensitive information. This is a class of data that the law considers extra private, and because of that, it comes with a much higher level of protection and much, much stricter rules.
And here's where it gets a little tricky for a lot of businesses. This sensitive information category includes stuff you might be handling every single day. Sure, you've got the obvious things like medical data, but look at this list. It also includes credit card details, geolocation data from a user's phone, and even financial activity. Handling just one of these automatically puts you into a higher risk category.
So, this difference between regular and sensitive information leads us to a really, really important practical question for every business owner. Do you need to formally register your database with the authorities?
This table right here is basically your cheat sheet for figuring that out. Just look at the column on the right. You are legally required to register your database if you meet any one of these conditions. More than 3 people can access it? Register. Data on over 10,000 people? Register. And here are the 2 big ones that catch most people. Using your data for direct marketing, yep, that includes your email newsletter, or collecting even a single piece of that sensitive info we just talked about.
For a lot of businesses, that alone means registration is now mandatory.
Okay, we've covered the risks, we've covered the rules. Let's get to the most important part. What do we do about it? In Section 3, we're going to walk through a simple, 4-step guide to get your business on the right track.
Here it is. This is your playbook. It's 4 logical steps. Step 1 is to map your data. You need to know exactly what you collect, why you collect it, and then minimize it down to only what is absolutely essential. Step 2, update your privacy policy. Make it clear, make it easy to understand, and make sure people can find it. Step 3, get proper, explicit consent. We'll talk more about that in a sec. In Step 4, be ready to handle user rights. That means having a way for people to see, change, or even delete their information if they ask.
So let's zoom in on consent for a moment, because this is a huge change. The days of pre-checked boxes are over. You now need what's called active and informed consent. That means an empty checkbox that the user has to physically click themselves, and it has to be right next to clear language, like the example you see here. It has to say why you want the data, link to your full policy, and make it obvious that they can change their mind at any time. This is the new gold standard.
And finally, let's cover a few extra good practices. Think of this as the final polish. These aren't just about ticking legal boxes. They're about building real trust with your users and bringing your business risk down even further.
So to really nail your compliance, here are a few final checks. First, you should seriously consider using a cookie banner. Now, while it's not strictly required by this specific law yet, it's a global best practice and a great way to show you're being transparent. Second, check on your vendors. You are responsible for the third-party tools you use, like your email system or payment plugins. Third, double-check your own data security, things like encryption and who has access. And lastly, make this a regular habit. Review and update your policies whenever your site changes. Now, I have to state this very clearly. This explainer is for general information. It's a guide, but it is not a substitute for professional legal advice that's tailored to your specific business. Please consult with a legal expert to make sure you're fully covered. And that really brings us to our final thought. This whole legal shift is about so much more than just avoiding fines. It's about a fundamental question for your brand. In this new digital world we live in, data privacy is a cornerstone of the customer relationship. So you have to ask yourself, is your website building trust, or is it breaking it? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.